Hi, my name is Jen Poulson, and I am a soul connection coach. And I'm so excited to share with Pearl today.
Hello, sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk out to let you back in. Stuck in a storm of a relationship. Lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here. Once you leave the clouds, you're under. Ain't it funny how there ain't no rain or clear? Why'd it take so long to leave you in the rearview mirror? Now nobody gonna steal my sunshine or turn my blue sky gray. All I know is at the end of the day, wildflowers grow when there ain't no shade.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another Conversations with Pearl. And this is my third one today that we're recording because my dear friend and my business coach, Julie DeLuca Collins, is taking care of her mom. So in the meantime, I get to bring you another amazing guest who is all about the mindset. And you guys know that's what my jam is. So today I'm bringing you Jen Poulson. She is the creator of Year of Miracles and has been helping entrepreneurs, execs, and coaches for over a decade with their most important work, their inner work. She helps her clients identify and release the hidden beliefs that are creating the self-doubt, the overwhelm, and the sabotage so work-life balance supports their success and most important relationships. Her unique method creates quick results as she combines her psychological background. Oh my gosh, spit that out, Pearl, 20 times, and intuitive mindset training. So Jen, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Pearl.
Yay. And tell us mindset, that's what we love here to talk about. But what led you down that path? So tell us a little bit about your background, Jen. Why mindset?
Yeah, well, I got an undergraduate degree in psychology and had every intention of like going and getting the master's and doing the whole therapy thing. And I think that probably stemmed from my parents. Like their marriage was a mess and they ended up getting divorced. And so I think that, yeah, I kind of naturally like lean toward trying to figure some of that stuff out for myself. Um, Luckily, the last semester of my undergraduate, they had us go to therapy every week at the college campus counselor. And it wasn't an experience that I loved. And in fact, it really a lot of times left me feeling discouraged and feeling like I was just kind of regurgitating and throwing up, so to speak, the same stuff over and over again. And I just didn't feel like I was making any progress. And so I decided like to abandon ship on the whole, becoming a therapist. Um, the interesting thing was is that I started like recognizing that I had quite a bit of anger and I had some self-esteem issues, and so I knew things were kind of out of balance. At that point, I was pretty young. I didn't know what to like do with it or make of it. And so, I got married, started having kids, and started realizing I'm still carrying all this stuff. This anger hasn't gone away, or you know, this desire to, forgive, you know, people in my life. I just couldn't connect with it. And several years went by, and I think I just had gotten in some like cycles of where I felt depressed, and I wasn't very patient with my kids, and I was like just struggling inside even though everything on the outside looked fine, and there was no logical reason I should be unhappy. And I had a friend just one day, she like put her hands on my shoulders and looked me right in the eyes and said, "Jen, you need to go to my energy lady." And this was like 25 years ago. And I was like, what? Like she went to church with me and I was like, I don't know what you're into. I don't know if I can be your friend anymore. And the thing is that over the years, I'd read the self-help books. I I was listening to workshops and seminars and going to seminars, trying to find something that would help me feel better. And it was just like little spurts of inspiration, but nothing seemed to stick. So I swallowed my pride. I decided I would scrounge up the money because my husband and I weren't doing that great financially at the time to go to the energy lady, no matter how crazy it sounded. And the decision to think completely different out of my comfort zone changed the entire course of my life. And all of a sudden, I just like this whole world of like the subconscious brain and why I do the things that I do and think the things that I think and feel the things that I feel just took on a whole new like perspective and meaning. And so, for 10 years, I went to different energy therapists and tried different like modalities that were different than just regular talk therapy because that didn't help me. And I'm not bad mouthing therapists at all. I think there's a place for them. It wasn't a good fit for me because I didn't realize like I needed help with the subconscious and my whole belief system that I didn't even know was messed up, you know? And so I just started realizing like, wow, I have all these beliefs that I'm not worthy and all these beliefs that I'm not enough. And kind of like we were talking before, like the people pleasing, I was thick into that and codependent relationships and I had it all. And when I started on this journey of starting to understand, like, oh, I can heal, these underlying beliefs that were developed in my childhood, and I can change those and transform those, and my life can be different, and I can feel different inside. And so, let's see, I'm 54. So about when I was 40 or 41, I decided I needed to decide what I wanted to do when I grew up. And so I went and got trained in an emotional release modality at the time it was called Simply Healed. Now it's called Simply Align. And I started my own business helping other women. And I've been doing that for like 12 years, over 10 years. So.
That's amazing. And so I want to go back to like in college. I mean, how many of you are listening that have gone through, you're going through college and you think, I just what I want to do. And then thank goodness they had to put you through that process, right? Because you're like, oh my gosh, this is not like you said, you're throwing up practically, over that. So, so it becomes that eye opener. And then you start leading this life of, because 25 years ago, we weren't talking about the things we're talking about today when it comes to self-care. We weren't talking about energy healers. We weren't talking about meditations. We weren't talking about yoga. We were talking about yoga, but they were saying bad things about yoga. We weren't talking about those things that center ourselves and give us that release that we need when we're high anxiety or stress, something stressed out, or don't know how to deal with a trauma that we've buried in our life for so long. Because again, I'm 58 years young. We certainly didn't talk about some of the trauma that we talk about today, and so to have these tools and this energy, and I could just see, because I remember when I told somebody I was going to go to even a chiropractor. Oh, chiropractor, you know about them? I'm like, come on, you guys. I love my chiropractor. In fact, my husband's going to my chiropractor now. My whole family goes to the same one, which they were all like going, what? But it's true. Like we have to find those things that bring us center. And like you said, you're snapping at your kids. And that's kind of where I was at in my journey of, trying to people please. I'm like, I was doing everything else for everybody, including my own mom, my own kids, but I was forgetting who I was. I didn't know who I was. I literally 6 weeks of an I am statement, still don't know who the heck I was at the end of the 6 weeks. Like, what did I just do? I spent 6 weeks, probably 2 hours a night on this subject. And I still was saying, I'm a wife, I'm a mom. Yeah, I am those things, but I'm something else before that, and I talk often, Jen, here on the show about you have to put yourself first because you can't show up for others the way we want to. And if you're not putting your cape on so tight that you can button in the back, you can't wrap somebody else around in the love you have for yourself and help love them and the way you want to. And it's so powerful that, like you did, you recognize it and said, you found the path for you. Because, like you said, not everybody's a right fit for each other, whether it's a therapist or a coach, like what we do. It may not be the right fit. I remember when I first started my business, I was primarily weight loss, and people would come into my office and they were like, but they've been on this yo-yo diet. I'm like, listen, they would be so perplexed. And this is why I kind of graduate into the life coaching realm as well, because they'd be perplexed. I'm like, okay, so what happens when you lose this weight? What's life like for you? They're like going, don't you want to know how much weight I want to lose? I'm like, no, I don't care what the scale says right now. I want to know, what is life like for you, Jen? Like, really, what's happening in your world? And then I'd send them home with art therapy, and they're like, I thought I was going to a weight loss coach. But I'm like, that's the whole point about it, is the mindset, truly figuring out that mindset of who you are. And so you go on this journey, and then you find this thing that works for you. What inspired you, empowered you to create a business with it?
Well, I think first and foremost, I like, at the time I started, I still had kids in high school, and I thought, well, if anything ever happened to my husband, I want to be able to be able to provide for my kids and be able to have a flexible schedule. And, so my goal was, basically just to, make some money, know that I could make money to support my kids if I needed to. And yeah, after I think a couple years, and I just didn't keep track of the money very well. And my husband's like, "Can I see your PayPal account?" And he's like, "You made over 100 grand." I'm like, "What?" I didn't even know. I just loved what I did. And, I was helping out with the household stuff and travel. And anyway, so then I realized, this is a real business. Like, this is, and something to be really serious about. And so then I started more investing and expanding and getting more creative with my things that I've offered. And so that was like my main motivation. But, over the years, it's just transformed into what I understand now is that it's part of my soul calling. And that's one thing that I help my clients understand, is your soul calling is much bigger than your why. Like, everybody talks about the why. To me, the why is still outside of you. I want the time freedom. I want a vacation house. I want to, feel financially secure. But what I felt led to help people with is, but what is your divine purpose? What did God divinely create you to bring to the world, whether you're walking around in the grocery store, whether you're at a community function, whether you're talking to your child, and our divine, or our soul calling, is not our work either. But through my work, I live my soul calling, which I've narrowed down to one word. Do you want to know what it is? Awakening.
Of course. Awaken?
It's awakening, to bring awakening to the world.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And so one thing that I do is I work with a lot of entrepreneurs who get stuck on plateaus in their business, right? And it's they get stuck with how do I money blocks, or they get stuck in, I can't find clients. People aren't saying yes to my events. And when we start diving into the soul calling, and they start to put that lens, onto their business, then I've had clients over and over tell me, "Oh my gosh, I had 5 sales this week just because I had this whole new perspective of, what I'm bringing to the person, not how I'm going to get the sale." Right. But it becomes this emotional, heart to heart thing. And then people are like, "Yeah, I want to buy from you."
Yeah. I love that you called your soul. Say that again. Your soul calling.
Soul calling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Cause you were just giving the right example. I'm sitting there going, Yeah, right. I remember when I first started my business, I was like going, well, I have this product I want to offer them. They need it, but now that as you were saying, I'm like, gosh, I guess that's what I'm doing because, I'll sit with a client. I'm like, I almost like paint the picture like I am them, right? That whole, this is, if, because you and I talked before we got on about my losing my son. And I'm like, I can't live my life differently just because he's not here. My soul is telling me, do what you're doing because you've got, these great things. And he would say all the time, wow, mom, I hear you coaching sometimes from the other room. I can overhear you. Some of the things you do and you say, that's pretty cool. I'm going to take that here or do that. And the cards that we do, he loved the cards. He would have the cards all the time and meditate. Had to go to rehab for a little bit and he took the cards with him and it was
Oh, I
really
love that.
powerful, So I love that the soul calling and yeah, that's so true. And I was going to ask you, so what made you decide, like you could have brought your expertise to anywhere, but why the entrepreneur and the executives and such that you work with?
I mean, honestly, it was just kind of a fluky it was just kind of fluky. Well, maybe it wasn't fluky, maybe it was just divinely, it just divinely happened. When I first started my business, I was looking for a business coach because I had done some network marketing, businesses before, so I knew some things about business, but I'd never, like, really been on my own building a business before. So someone had recommended me to this woman who was a business coach, but she also was a leader in doTERRA essential oils company. And so when I got on her call, I was a little confused and I just messaged her. I'm like, do you help coaches? And we got on this call. She's like, what do you do? And I told her what I do. And she's like, oh, can you release something for me? And I was like, okay. I don't even know you, but and then, she's like, "Oh my gosh, I wanna hire you." And I hadn't even had any paying clients yet. I was just practicing. She's like, "How much do you charge?" And I was like, $75 an hour." And she's like, "Okay." And I'm like, "Shoot, I went too low." But it was just such a divine intervention because I started working with her and then she started having me come on to her team calls. And then I started, like, it was just such word of mouth. And so then, like, teams would invite me to come and speak to their, like, groups and come to their team retreats. And I do group coaching and individual coaching. And then all of these people just started, like, taking off in their businesses. And many of them went right to the top, of the business because they were working on, the inner junk that was sabotaging, how they felt about themselves, how they felt their relationship with money, speaking up and being seen and heard in bigger ways. And so it just kind of became my expertise. And so now, like, since I've been doing this for like 12 years, it's really transformed into like I can really help people uh, get their soul calling aligned with their business and their messaging. It's very intuitive and it's really fun. And um, so that's why I've kind of been in the entrepreneur space and
I love that. It's kind of like, I have a coach that helped me with some social media stuff. They're like, just tell the story, speak to them, like what, share that story of what it is that you do, but let them know, like, make me feel like I'm you, make me feel like, oh, that's me on the other side of that camera. I need to work with that person, and it's really, that's so cool. You did exactly what we usually do when we first started business. We're like, oh, they're not going to pay. For those of you that are getting ready to start a business and you're listening, charge what you should be charging. Don't think they can afford it. It took me a while, Jen, to come to my soul calling and knowing that, my courses are worth $49.97 because that the work that we put into it and what I give you is so powerful and of my time. And I want you to walk away with it's called the Shero method, to walk away with that roadmap to really be in that person, that Shero that you're meant to be. And the soul calling, as you call it too, I think that's really, really powerful. So tell me, as a client, I'm an entrepreneur. So I come to start working with you. Kind of walk me through like the journey of a client that works with you. What can they expect when they work with you?
yeah. So Usually clients will come to me and they'll say things like, "Oh, I've hit a plateau. I'm struggling, like getting my voice out there. Like I have fears like being seen. I have fears of being heard. I'm making good money, but I'm afraid to get to the next level." Just things like that. Sometimes people will come to me and they'll entrepreneurs will come and they're struggling in their marriage. So it or struggling with one of their kids, but they know it's affecting their business. And so to me, I'm just like, we have a conversation. We talk about all the things that they feel like they're struggling with, like what's in the way, whether it's a mindset, thought pattern, like a situation, like you've hit a plateau. Those are all, I explain, like, those are all symptoms. So now we're going to start looking underneath the symptoms and we're going to start talking about, like, when your nervous system gets triggered, what are some of those situations? And then we're going to go to, let's see where on the timeline you first started believing that you weren't worthy of big success. So it's like this process of like connecting the dots from the top of the symptoms down to, okay, where did this actually happen on your timeline and what's the belief that's affecting this symptom? It's creating a block. And so not only, we get to that root, but then we also get to generational program roots as well. So it's like an intuitive experience. And I like do muscle testing, but a lot of it just, I can feel it in my body, like, oh, this is generational. And so we're getting the root from a lot of different angles. And then I can also feel like sometimes I'll have a pain in my back or in my throat or in my heart, and I'm like, okay, this is also stuck in your body, so we're going to work and we're going to release what's in your body, and this is all over Zoom. you know so I incorporate essential oils if people like essential oils. I incorporate breathing. I incorporate some visualization. But honestly, like, it's like the stuck energy, because all of our beliefs and all of our traumas, all of those things are just energy, right? And they're either stuck in our subconscious, they're stuck in our bodies. And so my intuition, I don't know how I do it. I just know it works, and it works quick, and it works really well. But I can put all the dots together, and by the end of the session, like, people are feeling lighter, they're feeling more confident. Um, I worked with one client, like, at the kind of at the very beginning, a man whose wife referred him to me, and he was taking public speaking lessons, paying a ton of money, flying from the East Coast to the West Coast to, like, present, and his voice coach or speaking coach was like, "You're not connecting with your audience, you're not projecting your voice." So this guy's wife was like, "You need to talk to Jen." Well, in that session, what we figured out was the cord was wrapped around his neck as he was being born. And that trauma, and this is by, like, connecting all the dots, right? From the symptom going down to the root. That trauma was creating a block in his ability to project his voice and connect with his audience. So we released it. I mean, as simple as just taking some breaths and being intentional. And he went the next day and flew back west, and gave his presentation, and his coach was like, "I don't know what you're doing, but you keep doing it." And then he was like, "You're a strong man. Your voice is important." Like, he listed all of these affirmations that I had given that guy in his session. He, like, called me up and he's like, I can't even believe this." So I mean, that's kind of a fun one because it was a very physical thing, but a lot of it is just digging deep into, like, the traumas, And not to relive them, just to identify, like, oh, when you were 4 years old, you had an experience where you believed, you had developed a perception and a belief about yourself, and now it's playing out in this way as an adult. So let's do that. We just go through some breathing, and it's very intuitive and different for every person. But by the end, it's like, okay, I feel like I can move forward. I feel I can get out there. I have confidence.
I love that because especially that example, that gentleman, it's like once you can step into it, you can release it. Oh my gosh, so many different things can come your way, especially like when I coach on overcoming people pleasing. Once you learn to put boundaries around things, you'll be shocked at the stuff that will happen. Right. And then the thing too, if you're listening to watch out for is that as you work on this stuff and the good thing comes, things are going to come up to be like, oh, and you're going to like to sabotage you. You have to push through it. I mean, last month I went away for a speaking course, the boot camp. And when I came back, I was in Denver. So the coming down the elevation just really messed me up body wise. I ended up in the hospital. And I was like, I was having such a high when I came home before I left. I'm like, this is not going to stop me, right? You have to tell yourself, this is not going to stop you because things will come up as you are building success. Like I know you were mentioning earlier, like when you get to that point where you're in your business or, your income level is at a certain level, then you're like, oh, I'm afraid to go more because what's going to happen? What's going to, kind of be in that way. So I love that you shared that too, because we have to, and releasing those things. You're right. Because I was talking on another podcast where, what you say between the time you're younger to that's 7 years old to our children, it can affect the rest of their lives. And if we don't watch the words we say, and if we don't do something, I feel right now in our school systems and just with our parents having conversations around, hey, I want you to talk positively with you. I think we're doing our children a disservice because they're on these crazy things all day long. And they
Yeah.
think that what they see here is what they should be, and it's like, so I love that you help them to release that, because until you do release it, and I've watched it happen, and I've gone through it myself, you have these limiting beliefs and you don't think you deserve it. And it's so refreshing that when you can be like, this is not holding me back anymore. It's so refreshing to see the rewards that come your way, as you were saying and describing.
Well, and I love that you brought up the children, because when we do our own work, and like one of the most powerful elements about the work that I do is the generational clearing. It clears for our children, it clears like for those that come after us, but it also helps those that have come before us. So you may be doing your inner work, but your siblings and your parents and your cousins and your grandparents, they're all getting the blessing of it. And, I have seen within my own family system where, some of my, not, most of my siblings don't really like get what I do, or, it's not their thing, and that's fine. But because my parents were divorced many years ago, it did create like a lot of tension, and a lot of it just never got like verbalized and processed through. But what I've noticed as I've been working on my stuff, like I've noticed a softening, with my siblings, and I don't know if they would notice it, but I notice it, and I feel like there are things that have healed and resolved, even though we haven't like hashed it all out, because so much of it we get passed down to us, and so I love that concept that, yeah, when we do our work, our children are blessed as well.
Yeah. And, it's interesting you said that, because I grew up in a house where if my parents had an argument or something, a disagreement, they wouldn't talk for like 2 weeks at a time. And then all of a sudden everything was fine and dandy. And you're like, how'd that happen? Because you didn't see it. So when I met my husband, and I've shared this story here before, that if we had a disagreement, like we were earlier in our relationship, if I had disagreement, I just was like, all I knew was to shut down. And he'd be like, I can't figure it out if you don't tell me what's on your mind. I would just still be shut down. And so he'd start having my conversation for me. And that would just get me so mad. I'm like, I wouldn't have said that to you. That's not how I'm feeling. And so then I started going, oh, I need to share my feelings so I can get this out of my system and not be like holding all this angst inside me, you know? And so I just love that. So true. And I was saying on an earlier episode, I'm like, I think our schools, and so I've really, now that this is my third time saying it in like 3 days, I think. I said, I think our schools, you know how in the morning they have, I know at least in elementary school, and I think in high school they still do it, where they do the morning show. I think they call it, where they get on, they do announcements and stuff. I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if they got on and did like, today our positive affirmation is XYZ, or how about we take 10 seconds or 10, 2 minutes to do breathing and everybody sit there quietly. I think our schools could
So
be
good.
so much better if we did that. So I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
going to find out. I know some people on the PTA here closely. So I'm like, I'm going to make a movement on that. That would be so cool.
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
make a recording for them and they can just play it.
Right.
Here's
Yeah.
Pearl's,
Gem
Pearl's
of the
advice.
day. Pearl's gem of the day. Pearl gives wisdom.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it would be so
Brilliant.
cool. Jen, you're giving me all these ideas. So look you're already giving me a release. I love it. So
Yeah.
so Jen, one of the things that we work on is self-care. We have what's called the Shero League. And so it's a community of women. We meet every Sunday evening from 8 to 9 p.m. And we come together. It came because I do these annual pajama retreats. So every year in September, we have a pajama retreat where you show up on Thursday. We have a makeup removal wine tasting party. So we take our makeup off. And then the rest of the weekend, we're in our pajamas the entire weekend long. And then we work on things around self-care, and we have like this year we have a sex and love coach coming in. She's phenomenal. Emily Young is her name. And so we have speakers like that come in to help us address things that sometimes we don't talk about, we're afraid to talk about, or that we just need to work on. And so after my first one I did, everyone's like, so how are we going to get together after all this? I'm like, oh, I didn't think about the after, that was before I business coach. And so we created what was called the Shero League, and every Sunday evening, and it really grew. I had the retreat before COVID, and the Shero League really took a jump forward during COVID because I saw the need where we were just sitting around and nobody was doing for themselves still. It was their moms and dads were trying to be teachers and everything else they never signed up to do. And so we get together every Sunday evening, a community of women who are working on their self-care, working on joy, working on releasing things that keep them from doing their joy. Sometimes we've been in the middle of a meeting and somebody's had something tragic happen, and we just, pour into that person during that time. It's unrecorded. You can be in your pajamas, it's on Zoom. But so right now, what we're working on in there, Jen, is that, we're working on what brings you joy and why does it bring you joy? Because sort of like what you were saying, the soul calling for your joy, right? So I can say, yeah, I got up this morning out of bed and that brings me joy because I have another day. But why? What does having another day in my life truly mean to me, right? And so they had to do 10 things. I'm going to ask Jen for your top 3. What are your top 3 things that bring you joy, and why do they bring you joy?
Oh, I love that question. Well, definitely being at the beach and having my feet in the sand. I'm like, oh, the energy of the beach just like fills up my soul. I just being there, like that brings so much joy to me. So that would be one. I am a new grandma. So I have a 2.5-year-old granddaughter, a 11-week-old granddaughter, and I have one more coming in a week. So, when I'm gonna get all emotional, when that first grandbaby was born and, I held her for the first time, like I have 4 kids, so I've held my babies before, but there was something like that was so different about holding a grandbaby, and it's like, it was like I feel like God was just reteaching me what joy was about. But not only that, like, he's teaching me, like, you came into the world just like this, like, just so pure and so innocent and full of love. And no matter what disconnected you from, like, embodying that as the, as the newborn or whatever, like that is still part of you. And the joy that I've had in, spending time with that little grandbaby the last couple years has been like, I can't even explain it. It has been like healing to my soul in so many ways. And then the third thing, I feel like just like being with a friend that you can just be like yourself. I love the idea of the pajama retreat because I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's my kind of space," and, just being able to be yourself, and, like, that brings me so much joy where I don't have to worry about, like, someone, being judged or criticized. It's like just this gift of being unconditionally loved by a really, great friend.
I congratulations on grandma. I'm not there yet. I told my, it's a kind of one of those bittersweet moments. I used to tell my son, my oldest son who passed, I used to say, I don't want grandbabies. You can wait 10 years, wait 10 years. He never was in a really serious relationship till when he passed. And Brittany is just amazing. And so he never had, he wasn't in a situation to have kids that I would want him to have kids, but that was one thing that, he did bless us with was this amazing girlfriend. And she has a little girl that Matt loved like it was like she was his own. And because her dad wasn't around, Matt just like he used to say all the time, Mom, I don't understand why these guys don't show up for their kids. And then here he meets Brittany and she's like, the dad's not anywhere around. I'm okay with that. And so he's left us that blessing. I somewhat have that grandma. My younger son is not married yet. I think that's coming soon. We're hoping, but I think that's so amazing. But yeah, the retreat has two of your joys. One's the beach, right? We're literally on the beach with our own walking path to the beach. And then second one is just hanging out with girlfriends. And literally that's what we do. And some of the stories that, I've had people come to this retreat that I do, walk in doing a business and they leave saying, that's not the business I want to do. And they close that business and start it with their soul calling, as you call it, Jen. Like they did what their true passion was. And that's why I do it. It's so, and also the makeup. People often ask me, like, why do you take off the makeup? And I explain to them, listen, my first retreat I did, it was a 2-day retreat. You could come and go. You could stay at the hotel. We had a hotel at that time. And after that first time, we decided to do a house. And from the last 5 years, I've been at the house, but, or 6 years. But I said, the reason why the makeup comes off is I feel if you take off your makeup, you have nothing left to hide behind. You are being your raw self. There's nothing left. And if you can have the strength to do it, that alone that's the first letter of the S in Shero is like, you're getting the strength to take this makeup off. And I can tell you, and I give them an example. I go, there's one lady who came to my retreat. She refused to come without makeup on. And I can tell you today, she's still in the same spot in her life she was 7 years ago. But everybody else, I've had people leave bad relationships, abusive relationships. And it's not like they come in here and we know they have this stuff that's going on in their life. But once they come into the retreat, it's like that safe space. They realize, like you said, Jen, these girls are going to be my girlfriends. These are girls that have gone through experiences not exactly like mine, but very similar. And so that's what's so rewarding. And that's why I keep doing it, because we need to touch more. And last year we had 13 in attendance, one of our highest, and everybody's coming back this year. So we said we want more women. So we upped it to 25. So we have 4 spots left, Jen, if you want to join us. So just saying.
Give me the info.
Yes, I will. So we work on the joy and breaking down with the joy. And you did great. Like you gave the examples, and that's what we were helping them really break down with. So then the second part of the journey that they were working on is they had to create their not to do list. We have so many times we have these to do lists of things we have to do, but the not to do list is to take things that you're doing in your life that are stopping you from going to the beach, stopping you from being with your grandchildren, stopping you from being with friends. So if you think about your not to do list, what things in your life the top 3 things that you say, I have to stop doing this because it doesn't allow me to do this, Joy?
Let's see. Well, I mean, I think I can always do less scrolling on social media. Sometimes I get on there to post and then I like get lost in it for a little bit. So yeah, that can be a distraction, but a big energy drain for me. So scrolling on social media. Um, I would say like stop worrying about the stuff that I can't control. Like that's a lot of times, I can get some spiraling thoughts, and that's one thing that, I work on. Okay, what's underneath this? Why, this is taking a lot of my brain energy. So like just letting go of the worry. And the third thing would be I would say there are times that I don't speak up um when I need to. And even though that might not have a direct like a direct correlation to spending time with my kids or going to the beach, what it does is it drains my energy, so that I have less creativity and less motivation, and I just don't feel my best. So if I'm not feeling great, then I'm not going to be engaging in those things that I love. So coaches have stuff too.
You did. Those were powerful, especially like the social media that I feel like I have that's one of my not to do list as well. And then the stuff you can't control. That's like, I have a situation right now with my mom that we're trying to, guide through some decisions, and we've got a relative that's like throwing these daggers, like we're trying to do these things, like just want her to be safe. And so it's like I can, like that whole energy of going down there going, why would I think that? I was like, I need to get rid of that. I'm going to release it. I'm going to share this is why we're doing what we're doing, and we're not doing what you think we're doing, or maybe you're being told we're doing. So, so that's really great examples. Thank you so much. So the Sheros, so everybody always asks, and I always like to break it down. I want to break it down with you and ask you some questions around being a Shero. So the S stands for strong. So, many times just saying no to somebody, just stepping into who we truly are and leaning into that process can be so scary and fearful. And so I create the S because I feel like we got to get our strength to be able to say no to others and yes to ourselves, overcoming that people pleasing. So, where was there a time in your life that you had to dig, Jen, deep down and use that strength you have from your energy? How did you use that strength to get through the challenge in your life?
Well, I am a recovering people pleaser and, codependent relationship person. And I didn't realize it for a long time, and but what was happening in a lot of my friendships is like I kind of attracted women that just needed a lot of or wanted a lot of attention, and things were always um things were always breaking down. Things were always like happening, and I would just jump in and just try and save them and try and fix things for them. And I'd put my family on the back burner, because it just made me feel good, right? To try and help somebody, but it was really unhealthy. And so as I was doing my inner work and I was having more awareness about what was happening, I started putting up some boundaries and saying like no. And it was very, very difficult because a lot of times the ones that I had given everything to, as soon as I put up the boundary, they were the first ones to like stab me in the back. And it was very, very painful. And it was interesting because I feel like, when we start to have an awareness and it's trying to make and we're trying to find that strength and we're trying to let go of the old emotional junk that keeps us tethered to that pattern, we get opportunities, to practice being strong. So it took me about 4 friendships, I think, by counting that right, of learning how to have boundaries until I didn't attract those types of like people in my life that just were trying to suck everything that I had. That was some of the those were some of the hardest moments that I really had to step into that strength of, doing something different so that I could get a different outcome.
Wow, you know, that's so true. I remember I'm an overcoming people pleaser too. And so that was one of the things I was so proud of because I I was just like you said, anything for my friends or for, somebody's business you want help and then my family be on the back burner. And when I finally stood into that understanding that saying no to others is not selfish, it's taking care of me so that I can take care of all those things that I love to do. I started saying it more excitedly. Like I would say, no, I just can't do that right now. It's not a good fit for me. And if I knew somebody, I'd be like, hey, maybe you can call Jen. It might be a great fit for her. I'm not sure what she's got going on. And as I was doing that more and more, I was finding that I was opening doors for people who were waiting for the opportunity. So I thought that made me feel good. But then fast forward, you reminded me that once you can step into that, I had a friendship, like we became fast friends. We were attached to the hip everywhere we went. Like to the point that when we stopped being friends, people were like, well, what happened to so and so? And it got to where I was like, I kind of like avoided the question. And so I stepped into that. I don't need to people please to make sure she's protected. You know what I mean? I found myself kind of doing it. I'm like, that's not what I've worked so hard to do. So I finally just was like, and when it went down, she said something about life. And it's kind of interesting how it came full circle, her comment to me that I actually felt her comment personally. I looked at her like she was living with us at the time. I literally looked at her and I said, that's against my ethics. That I don't believe in. And you need to leave my home. And so once I stepped into that, it brought me back to going, that's who you are, Pro. Stand by what you're not being a people pleaser. You don't have to say, oh, it's okay. You can still stay here or you can still be my friend. And then as I did that, like I said, when people would ask, then I was like going, I don't have to protect. It's her job to, answer for herself. I would just be like, our ethics don't align up together. So I made the choices that are right for me, and that power came back because I was letting some of that power go by doing
Mhm.
that protecting, and I love that you share that with the S. So the next one is happy. As we walk in that strength, you do become happier. You start finding your happiness again, and you start enjoying those things that bring you joy. You enjoy the beach and your grandchildren and things that you were describing. So tell us, to the listeners, what does happiness mean to you, Jen?
Honestly, I've thought a lot about this question over the last, especially couple years, and to me, it's feeling peace. It's not like having everything in my life be perfect by any means. Like that's not gonna happen. But if I can feel peaceful in any circumstance, then I'm happy because, it's more of like I'm moving through life instead of stopping, starting, like with all the frustrations. And it's like, no, being like for me, happiness is kind of being like in the flow. That makes sense?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, because when you don't have peace, how can you be fully happy, right? Like, how can you really enjoy that happiness? So that's a great one. And so the letter E stands for empowered because I think too, like, as you become strong and you become happier, then you start becoming empowered to really step into, who you truly want to be, or maybe it's a dream or vision you've had. Maybe it's a business you want to start, or you don't want to work anymore. You want to stay home with your kids and be a CEO mom, or if maybe you are a CEO mom that doesn't want to stay home all the time and you want to be a CEO working mom, that's okay too. And so I love that letter E. So thinking about empowered, at when in your life did you, through what your work you do, that you finally say, I got this, and became more empowered to like you said, your husband looked at your PayPal, was like, wow, you've got $100,000. This is awesome. I'm sure that was kind of part of it as well. I mean, and like to step out and start a business, to go on that leap of faith, to go, I'm going to go do this. Where was that time, and describe to us what it felt like to have that empowerment?
Well, I think the a moment of real empowerment for me was the first time I got on a stage in front of, I think there must have been like 100 people in the room. I was hired to come and do to a like one of those doTERRA team retreats to some higher leaders, and they wanted me to talk about mindset, and then we actually did a group session. And I had never done a group session with 100 people live on a stage before, and it was so empowering because it was just this, like, experience of I am the conduit, like, this isn't about me at all. This is about me, like, just receiving what this audience needs, and my intuition was, like, so on fire, and I knew exactly what to say and exactly what to release and clear and like the affirmations that we connected people to. Like it was like one of the most empowering moments. And that's when I was like, I'm doing what I'm meant to do. But I will say, like, in order to have those empowering moments, like, I have to always, like, be working on my stuff because, like you said
Right.
before, like, things come up and they try and sabotage you, and every time you're working towards a higher level, you're gonna have deeper stuff coming up. So if I always tell my clients, like, if you wanna stay empowered, just work on your stuff as it comes up. Doesn't mean
Yes.
anything's wrong with you, you just have to be like, "Oh, I'm feeling really off," or, "Oh, I'm having some sabotage thoughts or actions," or whatever, like, "Okay, that's my sign, I get to clear something deeper." That's what I think keeps us empowered.
Yeah, and that's why I do my affirmation every morning is I'm beautifully and wonderfully made, good, bad, and different. I'm going to have an amazing day and whatever comes my way, and I will always have a lesson to learn from it. So then I'm allowing going, okay, there's things that are not going to be the ideal I want it, but I'm going to learn from it. And speaking of, I'm actually speaking for my first 200 people stage on International Women's Day in Citicorp, and like stepping out, it's like somebody's like, "Are you nervous?" I'm like, I have butterflies, but they're not nerves. I'm like, I
Yeah,
have butterflies because I'm like going, there's 200 women and there's some men there that I'm going to be able to go like, here's why you should be a Shero. And here you gentlemen that are in this room, why you need to let your loved ones, the women in your life, moms, daughters, whatever it is, be empowered to communicate that expectation. So I love that example.
but
And so radiant. And as I was telling Jen before we hopped on, I was telling her I'm stealing this from one of my previous guests. We were talking about radiant. She goes, "Oh, you mean glowing up?" And I'm like, I love that. And so radiant, yes, it means like glowing up. You're working through the first few letters of Shero and you're really starting to shine. Like you've got this glow and people are starting to ask you, what's going on with you? You look really different. Like they're recognizing, right? So as you were growing your business and walking into this beautiful journey you have of helping others, at what point did you feel like all of a sudden you're stepping your step going, wow, this is I'm really enjoying this.
um, I think the first time that I realized that people were, like, seeing me as, like, I guess someone special and, like, what I do was the first time I went to a doTERRA convention, and I was walking through the halls, and there's thousands of people there, right? Like, I certainly don't know anybody, but at that point, I had been coaching a lot of people, and I'd hear people and I'd be standing in a line, and I'd hear people a few people like, few people back, like, "That's Jen Poulson. Oh my gosh." And I'm like, and people would like come up with to me and be like, "Oh, I listen to your Facebook lives and I love them." And it just surprised me so much, and I really loved that moment. I I was like not embarrassed by it. I wasn't trying to downplay it. And that says a lot for our inner work when we can be like, wow, like not that it wasn't anything about like, oh, I'm important or I'm better than somebody. It was like, wow, they see me, you know?
That's powerful. I'm thinking of an actor that I wish I could like bring around and go, that's how you should have behaved the day that I met you. So I don't know if you remember this show. Oh gosh, Emma Sands was in it. I think it was Dynasty. I think it was called Dynasty or something like that. And she was dating, I don't remember his name, but her significant other on the show, very handsome young guy. So my husband and I lived in California and they had the car show, but that was back in the day when they made you do this Disney line, kind of thing. And so we're going through and I said to my husband, "Oh, that's so and so." And I just said it. We were behind him the entire time. Like you couldn't get out of line. You were behind. So near the end, I waited till we're almost done out. And I just said, hey, I just want you to know that I think you're really awesome. It was great just hanging out with you here tonight. I know, I didn't want to bother you, but just wanted to tell you that. He literally looked at me, Jen. He's like, I can't believe you're bothering me. Leave me there. And he said some not so nice words. And I was like, I said, you know what? I'll do you one better. I'll make sure not to watch your show anymore. I'll let all my friends know. So I wish he needs to get a lesson from you, Jen.
Oh my
And the
God.
funny thing is that after that show, I honestly don't, karma. I don't think he really went anywhere. But when you said that he came to my mind, like going, yeah, it's really cool that people go, that's Pearl, that's John. That's very, very cool. I love, love, love that. And so the O, as we were talking before we came on today, is the O is because I feel like there's so much talk about being your authentic self. And yeah, you can say, oh, my authentic self. Well, that's great. Like you said, all these things on the outside, but what are you on the inside? And I feel like if you really do the work, we have what's called the Shero method, and we walk through all these letters. And if you really do the work on those first four letters, then you really do become that original self that was always been there. It's not that you're authentic. You've always been there. You just forgot who she was. And as you become and you do this work, now you're that original authentic self that you've always been. And you can really walk in that world, and you can really put that hero cape on and really have that superpower of being who you are and who you're meant to be. So, Jen, what I want to know is what's upcoming for you, because I can tell you are the person you want to be. And I can tell that you are empowering so many people with what you offer. But I want to know, in your authentic original self, what else is on the plate or in the future that you're working on?
Well, I am working on, in my bio that you read, like it said I'm the creator of Year of Miracles. And so that was a program that actually I had thought about. I guess I had brainstormed it like many years ago, but then in 2019, I like had this idea. I'm like, I'm going to create a Year of Miracles program. And then randomly, I found a piece of paper where I had it all laid out, like from years ago. And I was like, this is weird. I've heard about this kind of thing, but I've never experienced it. And so what I did in that year, in 2019, every Monday through Friday, I got on Facebook and did like a little mini like clearing, little energy session, mindset session. They're usually between 15, 20, 25 minutes. Every month had a theme, and then every week had like sub themes, and every day had like a little sub theme of the week. And so what I'm working on now is we've got all of those recordings edited, and we're putting them on an app on the phone so that people can have access to that and have yeah, so they can like be working through, like, the first month is abundance, and the second month is like relationships, because February, right? March, I think, is something like creativity. And so every month, June is all about the family and clearing trauma and doing dedication work for kids. And so you got all these little mini sessions that you can just have at your disposal, listen to with your family if you want to. But I have a lot of people be like, oh, I just am feeling off today. What can I do? I'm like, go to your Year of Miracles apps, spend 15 minutes. It's energy, right? So it doesn't matter, like whatever needs to release and heal, like you'll get whatever you need. So that's a big project that we're getting ready to launch. And I'm in the process of rebranding, actually. So my website as it is right now will be changed within a few weeks, and really focusing more on like working with people who want to do the deep dives, like more one-on-one, like soul work. I just changed my title to Soul Connection Coach because that's really what I want to focus on. I feel like there's this universal shift happening where our souls are like, we've been through trauma the last few years. We've had the great like excavation of all of our junk. Like if anything was hiding during the pandemic, lockdown and craziness, it was coming up. You couldn't really ignore it, right? So we had that like excavation. then I feel like we had a little downtime. And now it's like our souls are like, okay, it's time to go deep. Like it's time to really get solid in understanding like who you are, why you're here, and then live it, because the world is just getting so chaotic. And if we don't have that inner strength, like you were talking about, and if we don't have that connection and understanding about who we really are and like living in our authenticity from this deep level that can't be blown in the wind by, this post or that post or this news thing and this drama, like we have to like get into that space. If we do that, then our lives will weather whatever storms are around us.
That is so true. Congratulations on the rebranding. And I love the new title. I think it just says exactly who you are. That's awesome. I
Thank
can't wait to
you.
see everything. I just looked at my watch and it's like, oh my gosh, our hour is upon us. We've been having so much fun. So we'll make sure we put all the links where everybody can find you as well. And we drop and share everything about you. So I don't want us to forget our cards. So our Better Questions, Better Life cards. Jen already knows we're going to shuffle these. She's going to tell me when to stop.
Can I say one thing really quick? I am going to give you a link to a landing page where people can like put their email in and receive like a day from my Year of Miracles program.
Awesome. Okay, you guys hear that? So you're going to get she's going to give you a day from a Year of Miracle program. I love that. We'll make sure everybody has that. Thanks, Jen, for reminding me of that. I didn't have your sheet because I took over for Julie today. So awesome. Thank you for that reminder. All right, so I'm going to shuffle. You tell me when to stop shuffling.
Okay, now.
All right, let's see. Ooh, what am I doing to pursue my passion?
Ooh, I love that. Well, I hired a really great business coach and like really made a big investment in myself. Like I feel like as a coach, when we make those big investments in ourselves, it like sends a message back out into the world that it's safe to work with us. And so like, really getting some dialed in help is like what I'm really passionate about right now. So that's what I did.
I love that. That's awesome. And I love your passion. You guys, you have to watch on YouTube as well because you can see Jen's beautiful smile and sharing all of that. So I want to thank everybody for listening. Jen, thanks for joining us today. And I just want to remind you, if you want to know about the retreats, you just go to wslivingretreats.com. That's wslivingretreats.com. But if you really want to become your Shero and step into that superpower of who you are, all you have to do is email hello@wsliving.com, hello@wsliving.com, and just type in Shero, and we'll get you all the information you need. Because remember, as you come into this world, you're a little rough oyster on the outside, but as you open that shell and you open up the inside, you will find your inner pearl of greatness. And I hope you guys have a great day and you go find your inner pearl of greatness.
Hello, sunshine, good to see you again.